We've officially started Hampton Torch.
Man, we're in. There's no going back now.
There's not. I see we already got some people trickling in. Man, I have the capability to ban attendees. Should I ban Blake Atwell from our webinar?
I think it's a no-brainer to ban Blake. Oh, I see Tyler Graham in the chat. If you don't follow Tyler Graham, everybody hop in. We may need to get Tyler to join us on one of these.
Yeah. Tyler, don't be surprised if we spotlight you here at some point and put you on the spot. Yeah, everybody, as you're logging in, type in the chat where you're coming to us from. What city you in? We'd love to hear from some of the audience out there.
I see a Birminghamian, Aubrey Breed. Josh Swing and I are in Birmingham, Alabama. So I know a lot of you are not from there. I see Matt Farmer. He's in Alabama. We see you, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
My long lost friend, Matt. Matt, hope you're doing well, man. We got Wes coming to us from Petal, Mississippi, Petal School District out there in Petal, Mississippi. Man, this is great.
And we'll definitely get rolling here in a minute, but we're just letting everybody join.
Hampton, how many Celsius have you had in preparation for our webinar today?
This is actually my third of the day. I'm kidding. It's not, but I am enjoying a Celsius right now just to really make sure we bring the energy, especially because, Josh and I, when you do webinars, it is essential to have a microphone at all times. And so I'm just trying to, live up to the hype. We'll have a duet for you at the end if anyone wants to hear us sing. So to get ready for that too.
Nobody wants to hear me sing. Hampton will sing for us.
No.
Those of you just now logging in, we're going to wait a couple minutes, let everybody get in before we kick this thing off. We'll kick it off in the next 1 or 2 minutes. While we're waiting, how's everybody's Wednesday going? In an emoji, and Bonnie said the duet is a selling point.
Okay. All right. We'll do it. Hey, what songs should we sing?
Yeah, we're taking karaoke song suggestions right here. What's the go-to?
Hey, I see a Rex Stewart in the chat. Rex, if you have any jokes for us for the chat, we would love to hear one from you. Rex is the class clown of the office. Closer by the Chainsmokers. I love it. Yes. So if anyone wants to add anything in the chat, if anyone's confused or really wondering why you should be excited about the Great Resignation and has any guesses before we get rolling, you're welcome to let us know in the chat. A lot of people have asked me what the answer is, and you will see that here soon.
Yeah, we can't give anything away, but we'd love to hear some guesses.
And next time we do this, we're going to have some music playing. I think that would really help us with the vibe here. So if you come back next month, if we don't scare you away or bore you, we'll have music. So
Blake said,
and we'll take song.
Blake said more candidates for Fire Seeds. Fire Seeds is the Wild Spark sister company. They do high-level recruiting, executive and mid-level leadership searches for organizations really across the country. And I know Blake's excited for the increasing talent pool for sure. That's the wrong answer though, Blake. So.
All right, give us just a second here and we'll hop in.
I say let's get this party started. What do you say, Hampton?
Hey, if you snooze, you lose. It's time to get going, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to why you should be excited about the Great Resignation. We are fired up to be here. This is the first of hopefully many webinars to come from the Wild Spark team. and me and Hampton have the pleasure of kicking it off for you all. We're going to get started. And first, I think what's important is to look at just some data around resignations and why even this time period has been labeled as the Great Resignation. So the actual first statistic that we have here just shows you a line graph of resignations over time. And so you can see you got the amount of resignations over each year, and obviously a steady climb is the first thing that you notice. There's consistently increasing resignations. There's a COVID discrepancy here with the 36.4, but then it's resignations are higher than they've ever been before in 2021. And all of the studies and data show that this is going to continue for 2022. That 2022 is going to be even higher than the 47.8 that happened in 2021. And so I think the next practical thing to look at is why? Why are these resignations happening? Why are people leaving their jobs? What does that look like for us, Hampton?
Yeah, and the Pew Research Center interviewed roughly 7,000 non-retired Americans and found something interesting. So the top two, they're tied. The top two reasons are low pay and lack of advancement opportunities. So we're going to spend some time on lack of advancement opportunities today for you. So we'll show you what that means now.
Yeah, for sure. Clear problem, lack of advancement opportunities. We're not going to help you with compensation here today. Sorry, you're on your own for that. But we are going to help out with what is this challenge of advancement opportunities. And so we want to clearly define it first. And I think the best definition is this is how people feel right now within their companies. For any of my Secret Life of Pets fans that are out there, I have a 2-year-old. Currently, his favorite movie is Secret Life of Pets. So we watch it at least 5 times a day. I've seen this scene more times than I can count. But I think this accurately depicts what people are feeling in their roles. They feel like they're running, they're working hard, but they're going nowhere. And so if you really look at the definition of advancement, the first bullet point that we have here, we have a 2-part definition, which is what I found when I Googled advancement. And the first definition here is the promotion of a person in rank or status, which I believe is what we naturally think of when we think of advancement. It's a clear promotion or a new job title or increased responsibility that you're taking within your role. And I think that's 100% true. That is advancement. But I think there's a whole other side of advancement that a lot of people aren't thinking about.
Yeah, I think this is where we're falling short in our marketplace today. I mean, most companies are thinking about advancement as, okay, when that manager or promotion opportunity comes up, that's advancement. And while that's true, I think you can start far before that. I think you can start day one with the intern or the recent college grad and start doing things to invest in them, and they will advance, whether that is by title or just by overall ability. And I think that will then turn into buy-in within your company because they see you investing in them. So that's something that I think a lot of people get wrong. It's, well, Hampton, we don't have any positions to promote people to. And, eventually if there's not an opportunity to move up, that could be an issue. But I think you're going to keep your people a lot longer if you have a little mindset shift and start developing people regardless of if there's like a title coming for them or not. And so another piece of data for you, this is from Apollo Technical. Josh, if you can give us a slide, is that 83% of businesses say it's important to develop leaders at all levels. So 83% of people would say, yeah, I want to provide advancement opportunities for everyone. Yet less than 5% of companies have implemented leadership development across all levels.
That's a significant gap.
And
that's a big gap.
Yeah, I know it's a really big gap. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how to be the 5%. Because this is just one of those things that everyone's going to agree. Yeah, of course, we want to develop our people at all levels, but it can be challenging to do. And there's some disconnect between what people are saying and what they're actually doing. And so we are going to give you some practical tips to be a part of that 5% today, which hopefully will help you be excited about the Great Resignation. Because if you are part of the 5%, the whole point of this is that people are going to want to come work for you because you have advancement
Yeah.
opportunities for them.
I think there's even a whole nother problem in here, Hampton, that 83% of businesses say it's important to develop leaders at all levels. And I'm sure that's what they're communicating to candidates as they're coming in, new hires. But what would be extremely frustrating is to hear how much a company cares about leadership development and making sure that you grow as much as you possibly can while you're there. But then you get in and you're like, man, none of that's happening. And I think another huge attributing factor to the Great Resignation is if you're not following through with what you're saying is important, then chances are people aren't going to stick around. They're going to go somewhere else that actually walks the walk and doesn't just talk the talk. And so, yeah, excited to unpack of how to walk the walk. And so we're going to touch on a couple of key areas here. The first area that we're going to touch on for advancement specifically is you can't really go anywhere until you clarify what you want people to grow in. And so,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hampton.
Absolutely. Sorry, I totally stole your thunder there. But yeah, so the 4 C's here. Number two, after you're clarifying, hey, what are those key areas of growth? Where do we need to grow? The next step would be to curate content and resources around those actual areas of growth.
Yeah, for sure. And then, right, community is so big. We know that we grow best with other people. And so we're going to unpack how does community even exponentially impact the content that they could be potentially focused on that you're coming up with for them to talk about, discuss, and learn from.
And then I'm making up this data on the spot, but that 85% that says that advancement opportunities are important, I actually believe that probably close to 85% of them try something to give advancement opportunities, but they're not consistent with it. And so one of the most important parts of this is going to be consistency. And so we're going to hit on that as well to make sure that this is something that you can stick with for the long haul.
For sure. Clarify key areas of growth. So why is it important to clarify? It's because we really don't know where we're going unless we find out where we're going. And there's a couple of different ways that you can go about doing this. I think it's really easy for you if you're out there and you have a clear set of core values. If you're actually living out of those core values, it's a great place to start as areas of growth. Those are things that you want to continue to reinforce to make sure they're not just words on a wall or words on a website, but they're actually being lived out. I know another way that you can clarify what those key areas of growth are is to crowdsource it. And so how do you look at, what your people are saying? So
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our clients, a lot of people that we're working with, a lot of you in HR, we hear you say that you're doing some surveys, some employee engagement surveys. So that's one of the ways that we would recommend through an anonymous survey.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some examples here of some surveys that we've leveraged here internally as we've worked with HR leaders and CEOs that are trying to really understand like where are my people in their leadership journey. And so I think some of the really important questions to ask first is to understand like, do your people think that it's important? And so these are a couple of questions to help identify that. Some of my favorite questions to ask is on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is leadership and influencing your business, your family, and your community? For somebody who knows, who has experienced leadership before and how it impacts their influence, they're going to put a 5 or a 4 for this. But then to also follow up with, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the amount of time, energy, and effort our organization invest in your growth as a leader? Can be an enlightening question. So be prepared for some of the results that come from this. But I think it's really important to know where you currently stand with your team and how supported they feel in how you're investing in their growth. And then, a couple of other ones here that you can see, how much would they be willing to spend each month? How much time would they be willing to spend on leadership development? This will tell you a lot about the people that are on your team. And lastly, what are those specific areas of growth that they feel that they could grow most in? And once you aggregate some of this data of what people are saying in your current work environment on the areas where they need help, this is going to give you a lot of ammunition to be able to then do what is next, which is curate some of that content. But before we do that, Hampton, I know that you've got a couple of questions that you would add in here. So I want to hear your thoughts on other survey questions that could be helpful.
So we want to give you some extremely practical tips, and we're going to send you this slide deck. We're going to send you this recording. But if you're overwhelmed by a lot of those questions, really, I know someone named Riley Balling. He's been a superintendent for a large school system for a long time, and he had a lot of different questions he surveyed with, but the core of them really came down to these two. Do you feel positive about working here? And are you learning and developing in your position? And once you have data and once you have answers to those, you're going to have some pretty clear direction of what you need to do. And so maybe we just showed you a lot of questions and that might be a little bit overwhelming. If you need somewhere to start, try to find the answers to these two questions right here.
Super simple, yet super effective. I'd agree with you here, Hampton. And like, yes or no, right? You're gonna have to face the brutal facts on this, on what people think about your culture and do they feel positive getting to work there and are they learning and developing in that position? We'd love to hear. We're going to try something here for a second, if it's okay with you all. There is a poll that I'm about to launch or just kidding. Can you toggle over? Oh, we've already got answers coming in. Sweet. So what is the biggest area of growth for your team specifically? So as you're beginning to think about this and you're listening to me and Hampton talk, if you haven't answered yet, if you switch over to the polls tab in the chat, you'll be able to select from 5 categories that we laid out just generally. But I'd love to hear some of your responses of what you think is the biggest area of growth for your team. I see some answers coming in. I believe they're visible to you all too, but giving and receiving feedback looks like a clear front runner here at 8 answers. And man, it's climbing too. There's some other good ones here and good answers that are coming in as well.
Josh gave me feedback the other day and he did it really well. So
thank
you,
Josh. Hampton. All right, we're going to continue on. This is really helpful to see just what some of you are sharing about those areas of growth for your team as we talk about some of the content here in a second. So go ahead, Hampton.
Number 2, we have got curate content and resources. So Josh, hit me with the next slide here. So we're going to give you some ideas of what to do here. What does that look like? What are some ideas for content? So these are a couple books. There's a ton of books out there. Sunny Linebarger, I see her in the chat. She's read just about every book there is out there. I got a few behind me, but a couple of these, Dare to Lead. Brene Brown, she's fantastic. We'll talk about vulnerability, values, trust, extreme ownership. I've got that one behind me. Just giving your people an ownership mentality. Atomic Habits is going to hit on those consistency pieces. Josh, if you want to say anything about some of the ones.
Yeah, these more great books that I've personally experienced: Traction, Switch, Power Moments. But I think what's really important is to go back to the first bullet point, that clarify, looking at some of those topics first before you just say, oh, this is a hot book right now, I'm going to deliver it to my team. Let's first seek to understand what our team needs before we inject any content into the picture. These are just some examples. I think books are really powerful. We throw around a phrase here at WildSpark that is, Hampton, do you know what phrase I'm talking about?
Probably the one that Sonny just put in the chat. Leaders are readers. Does it
yeah. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. So I know that you're a big fan of books, Hampton. I'm also reading a couple books right now. This is one of the sources of content that you could pull from for your team. What's challenging about this sometimes is the younger generation specifically it can be difficult to get them to finish an entire book. You have the whole fall behind challenge where you're like trying to catch up on chapters, which can be slightly challenging too, but there's no doubting that there is a lot of wisdom in books. We're going to kick it down to the next source of content that you could pull from.
Yes, and Mallory, I see you in the chat. I love Blinkist as well. I think that's what it's
short
called.
Books.
But yeah, so next we have some podcasts here. The bottom left and the bottom right, those are probably 2 of the most famous leadership podcasts. I'm kidding. Josh and I each have our own podcast where I'll talk about those in a second. But Craig Rochelle, if you're looking for a quick drive on the way to work or, in the shower in the morning, like a quick thing, you can put that on 1.5 and you will get some crazy good leadership nuggets in about 15 minutes. He's got about every topic that you can think of. Swing, if you want to talk about.
Yeah. I love, and yeah, Craig Rochelle would probably be my highest recommend, Hampton, to your point. It also comes with leader guide, like discussion guides for your team that you could even leverage, which is helpful. But yeah, shameless plug on the Secret Sauce podcast and Wake Up and Lead. If you haven't subscribed yet, stop what you're doing right now with the webinar and go subscribe. I'm just kidding. Wait till after the webinar and go subscribe. But yeah, EntreLeadership's another really good one that pulls from business leaders and thought leaders in the leadership space. It's really all over the place. Each episode is full of value. And the Working Genius podcast is one that I recently subscribed to and took the Working Genius assessment. I think there's some really powerful stuff in understanding wiring and how teams work together effectively towards a collective goal. There from Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni also has a couple other podcasts that I would recommend. Next source.
Yeah. So the next source that we have is actually something that we provide within WildSpark. This is called our resource library. And so we may share a little bit more about WildSpark later, but within our online platform, there's a spot where you can essentially, if there's a topic that you're wanting to learn and grow in, you can just type that in and there'll be lots of different resources there. Like aside from the content that we're creating from some of the thought leaders in the space, we'll provide some portions of other podcasts, blog posts, or TED Talks that will be available. And so the primary idea behind those resources is WildSpark is a little bit less of a massive library for you to just say, okay, go learn, people. It's a little bit more focused on that core topic. But if you have something else you want to learn, or you have like an aggressive learner on your team, they're able to go in and look at some of those additional resources as well. And then Swing, if you want to talk about some of the conferences.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll add to that, Hampton. I think resource libraries are really helpful, but they can be overwhelming at times. But there's tons of good ones out there. You looked at things like LinkedIn Learning, and Right Now Media at Work, I know, is another one that's out there. It's just like a huge source of content, which is also scalable, especially if you have people in different locations. Maybe it's hard to get them all books and those kind of things. And maybe people interact better with videos and online resources. So this is definitely a helpful source to pull from for curating some of your own content. And then, yeah, conferences are great. They give you these mountaintop experiences where you get to learn a lot and step out of, the four walls that you work in to really learn and grow as a leader. And there's something really beneficial about that. And we personally attend conferences here at WildSpark. I listed a couple logos up here from conferences that are probably pretty well known: Global Leadership Summit, EntreLeadership Summit, Women in Leadership Conference. But it's helpful to take time away. I think the challenge here with conferences, and you could probably speak to this, Hampton, is just the continuity. It's like, what do we do? What do we do 3 months later or 1 month later after we get back from the conference? That can be challenging at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final one, Josh, if you want to jump into that, is these are some of the what we call units that we provide within WildSpark. And so Josh and I spend hours and hours every day on the phone, on Zoom with HR leaders. And a story that we hear often is, hey, we tried to read Dare to Lead, or we read Extreme Ownership, or we went through this book together. And I think there was some growth. There was some decent conversations within our book club, but over time it was hard to track if people were learning and growing, and people didn't want to read 50 pages a week. And so we may hear that, or hey, I've sent my people this podcast or this TED Talk, and I think it had a lot of value, but I'm not really sure if they looked at it, or it's kind of exhausting to have to come up with a new thing to send them every month on my own, because we know you in HR are wearing 1,000 different hats. Or finally, like the conference example, we think conferences are great. We go to those all the time, but I put that a little bit more into the mountaintop experience, where you're not going to be able to do that consistently, which is the point of the 4 C's that I'm the most passionate about. I'll talk more about that later. But what you're going to see with WildSpark is that we are going to help you pick these units, these 3-month focuses, where you as a team are going to be able to dive in and have bite-sized learning opportunities, where you're not always having to go out and find resources, and you're not having to follow up with people to see if they've read the book. You're able to just like see throughout our platform. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is just make this as easy as possible for an HR leader just to be able to press play and create some of what you might be trying to do through a podcast or a book club or a conference or something like that. So these are just a few of the options that we have. For anyone curious, we're happy to send you some additional ones.
Yeah, for sure. Well. We can share some additional topics on the old WildSpark menu if anybody wants to see those, but just laid out an example track that we would partner with a team to put in place. Well, once we have clarity on where we're going and we've got content, right? We've got content curated. We've done the research to pull from things that are going to really resonate with our team and with our people. What's the next step, Hampton?
The next step, this is a Josh Wing special, is community. If you want to make it 2 C's, create community. Create community.
Yeah. I will go blue in the face talking about the power of community and people, but right, it's true in really every aspect of our life. If you think about even book clubs that you've been a part of, or like, let's take a run group, for example. If I'm trying to train for, a half marathon and I got to run a certain distance on a daily basis and it's just me, I am very liable to hit snooze 5 times in the morning, maybe more, and roll out of bed last second, shower, and have to rush to work. Then if I know that I'm a part of a run group that's counting on me to come and to train, to push them on, then I'm much more likely to show up because I don't want to let other people down. And so there's this power in community through natural accountability that occurs in the group, where you're constantly getting better and pushing yourself because you have other people doing the same thing. And so we've got a couple of examples of just what community could practically look like as you build it into your development strategy, and build some of these connections. And Hampton, I'll let you take the first example here.
Yeah, with number 1, what we're going to call this is weekly shout outs. This is something that we do at WildSpark, and it does not take a lot of effort, but we know that people long to be seen and known and celebrated. And we take 15 minutes a week on a Friday morning to all stand around and shout each other out. And so it could be, oh my goodness, this person closed this big deal this week, or wow, I saw this person taking out the trash and I really appreciated that. I mean, anything. And it's just a quick opportunity to one, be celebrated, but then also celebrate other people.
Yeah, there's some kind of chemical reaction that happens inside when you get to affirm somebody else that even feels good for you as the affirmer. And what we also know is true, that if you celebrate something, what somebody's doing, the chances of it getting reproduced, for them doing it again, are really high. And so it's a big part of doing that on a regular basis, celebrating those little wins that are happening so that they continue to happen, those small moments of growth, so that people continue to push forward. I'll kick it over to a monthly example, and this is super teed up for WildSpark. You can see this is a group that Hampton and I had the opportunity to pull together. We've got some people, I think, here on the webinar from this group. Shout out the WildSpark Experience Squad. But monthly, you want to protect time to have leadership-focused discussions and conversations with each other. We make time for what is most important, and you've got to make sure that there's ongoing, consistent conversations happening so that you can see the growth that you want to see, and so that you don't feel like the hamster on the hamster wheel, right? We want to make sure that there's continued growth, that it's not just a flash in the pan or a one-time thing. And so how you drive consistency around this is based on the content that you've curated. You put that in play, but then you have follow-up conversations on it, because then there's accountability, right, to actually engaging with the content. But you can't stop there. You got to put in a little bit more work. I think what's really important for those conversations is to have premeditated questions, discussion topics that you're going to talk about as a group in relation to what everybody is learning about, so that people can come in without a deer in headlights look, and you don't have awkward silences where you're waiting on somebody to share, but people come in with solutions based on what they're learning about how they're personally going to continue to grow and push themselves forward, so they don't feel that complacency that ultimately leads to burnout and resignation, for the Great Resignation. But yeah, so I'll get off my WildSpark soapbox, but you can do this without WildSpark, right? You could do this with the content you've created through conversations and discussion topics that you come up with on your own. I will say, pro tip, make sure everybody shares in those conversations. Don't leave anybody out. So if there's somebody that's like flying under the radar, ask them specifically to speak in and share about what they're learning and growing in, because I think growth that isn't thought about isn't experienced. And so we got to make sure that people are experiencing that growth.
With you, man. Here's another one for you. And if you see this picture and you say, well, I lead a remote team, we'll have a little feedback for you here at the end. So stick around for that. But this is what we call our story lunch. This is not the most quality picture in the world. I posted this on LinkedIn the other day and someone made a comment of how many forks there were. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not a photographer. But the point is, there is someone who is new to our company who is sitting at the front of the room and telling a story about their life. They said, here's where I've been, here's where I went, here's how I got here now. And everyone, it has their full attention. So one, there's this community building time beforehand where people are eating together, and that's always a great opportunity. But then you get to hear the story of somebody else. And it's super impactful to be an employee and learn about this new person, but also just the buy-in that happens when you say, wait, all of you want to hear my story? I don't have to prove myself or earn that or anything. And so that's a huge hack that we've been able to do here at WildSpark internally. That is always super impactful as far as community building goes.
For sure. My favorite time of the month is when there's a story lunch on the calendar, and I get to hear about somebody else on my team. I did see a question come through a second ago, I believe from Carly. She said, how do you suggest doing the shout out with remote employees, add another meeting to the calendar? Rex, your suggestion was awesome. I saw that come through with creating a channel for shout outs through Slack, whatever messaging platform that you use. I also think, Carly, what's really helpful is we will protect time at the beginning of our weekly BME. So it's a part of our operational meeting, but we just kick it off the first 5 minutes. We just say we're going to do some shout outs for 5 minutes. And so it prevents you from having to add another meeting to the calendar. So I would encourage you to think about what meetings do we have on the calendar already that we could just inject a little bit of celebration into an affirmation for the team that we have in place would be how I answer that question. The last thing, so we went through weekly, monthly, now we're on quarterly. And this is a picture of some of the members of the beautiful WildSpark team. You can see here, we did get beat in kickball this day. So for anybody from our sister company, Fire Seat, that's on the call, they beat us. I'll admit it. But I think what's really important quarterly is to take time away and this is a great team building exercise. There's a lot of other things that you could do that don't involve finding a field. There's things that you can do virtually. There's plenty of options that are out there that we can talk more about. But it's also important as part of this quarterly time is team building. Also, reflection is incredibly important. So taking a little bit of time to reflect on the previous 3 months. Where have you grown? Where have you seen progress in your personal leadership skills? Where have you seen progress in the team's leadership skills? And then to think forward, to look at what's on the horizon for the next 3 months and what we're going to get really excited about from a growth and development opportunity. And so constantly doing that on a quarterly basis is going to be monumental for fostering that community, but then also making sure that development continues and that advancement continues for the team that's there. So summing that up, we've got weekly, monthly, quarterly, weekly shout outs, affirmations, monthly protected time to have a conversation that's not technical or operational, but solely focused on leadership skills. Bonus for story lunches, if you can sprinkle in a story lunch in there. And then quarterly time as a team to do a little bit of team building and to reflect and plan for the future. Yeah, Rex, Jackbox TV is one of my favorites too.
Yeah. So before we jump into consistency, if we go back to the beginning, why should you be excited about the Great Resignation? It's because if you create opportunities for advancement for all of your people, you will be a company that people want to come and work for. And so even that last point we made about quarterly opportunities to reflect, we take a half day. There's a couple of different activities within that, like you saw kickball, but where our CEO says, I would way rather you spend some time reflecting on not just your work, but really your life, because I want you to be the best version of yourself. He talks about this idea of boardroom to family room, where he wants to equip us and give us reps and wins at work so that when we go home where it matters most to all of us, we will be encouraged and be able to be the best versions of ourselves for our families. And as we do that, we'll come back to work our best selves. So that as an employee of this company, that is a massive opportunity for advancement. So that has nothing to do with me getting a leadership title. It's saying, I want you to advance as a person, and I'm going to specifically not allow you to work until you do that. And so it's been super impactful for me. But here's the thing, it's got to be consistent. And so, Josh, before we hop in super deep, why is consistency important?
Yeah, consistency is important because it's how we experience growth. It's how it's felt. We can't just do it once and expect to arrive as an advancement culture or arrive as a leader. It's got to be ongoing to see growth in any area of our lives. It's where it has to happen. And so, I was at a conference recently, or a get together, where a thought leader in the leadership space named Dr. Henry Cloud was speaking to an audience of CEOs, and one of the CEOs said, "Well, what if we're not doing anything right now?" And Dr. Henry Cloud's response was buckle up, right? Get ready, because it's going to be difficult. But I think that's important to know, right? To not sugarcoat things and say, oh, it's going to be rainbows and sprinkles as soon as you implement some of this content and try to have some of these conversations with your team, because they've never done it before. There's going to be an adoption phase. But Hampton, man, you're like the most consistent person in the world. And so I think you're better set up to talk about even consistency specifically, in the way that you think about it and your philosophy around consistency, and the impact that you've seen from it.
Thank you, Swing. My friend Teddy shared this with me the other day. The vast majority of people they get this backwards, what you see on the screen. They prioritize intensity over consistency. And so on January 1st, when there's no parking spots at the gym, but then by February it's empty, that's what I'm talking about. So as humans, we say, okay, I'm doing nothing, but now I got to jump all in. I got to give it my all. And then that leads to burnout typically. And so what you have to do if you agree that consistency is going to help you in whatever area of your life, specifically now for providing advancement opportunities for your people, you've got to figure out a way to make it sustainable. And in order to make it sustainable, you have to start small. So if it doesn't feel sustainable, it's not small enough. And once you make it small enough, if you're still not doing it, it's not a priority. So if you're still not doing it, that's where you begin to ask the question, one, do we have core values? And if we do, are part of our values to grow and develop as people? So at some point, it may just not be important. Maybe it's important to you, but maybe it's not important to your company, which that's a whole other subject, but that might be why people are leaving, because they don't care about this stuff. And so you've got to make it small enough. So I'm going to tell you how we do that for you at WildSpark. So Swing, if you go to our next slide, we have all these leadership topics that we showed you earlier, of how to do a one-on-one, how to think like an owner, how to give feedback, how to have tough conversations. And I think that what happens is sometimes a lot of our well-intentioned HR friends will say, here's a colossal library of resources, managers, go learn. And I think for 10% of people that are aggressive learners, that's going to be fantastic. But for a lot of people, you're not focusing on consistency. It's not going to be sustainable, and you have to make it smaller. So here's how we've chosen to do that through the first 90 days of WildSpark. Most of our clients will begin here with what we call our leader launchpad unit, because what you'll see over time in this 30, 60, 90-day period, it goes from an idea from the HR leader or the leadership team to a habit of, okay, I guess this is kind of what we do every month, to ultimately a conviction of the community I've built through WildSpark, through my team, is something that I'm not going to miss. And so the first 3 months, you'll begin with the story lesson. And so that's going to be focusing on the power of knowing your own story and other people's, because in order to lead other people, in order to lead a team, you have to be able to lead yourself. And in order to be able to lead yourself, you have to be able to know yourself. And so that's going to be really taking you back into some of the key events that shaped you and brought you to where you are today. And then you share it with people, and people that have worked together for years learn about each other. And then the identity lesson, we have some personality assessment opportunities where people get to learn about their teammates, how everyone's wired, and light bulbs go off when people realize that they don't think the same way as everyone else. And then the legacy lesson, going back to advancement opportunities. This is a chance for you to give your people a chance to look at their life and say, what is my why? What is the legacy that I want to leave behind? I'm actually spending 90,000 hours at work. How can I connect my legacy to here? Mm-hmm. And so this is a small bite-sized chunk where you're spending 1% of your time a month doing this. And over a 3-month period, that builds trust in the group. And then that gives you a teed up opportunity to jump into those leadership advancement principles that everyone wants people to grow in.
For sure. I'd agree with you, Hampton. So many times we get really excited, and it's the intensity mindset that you talked about a second ago, where it's like, I want my people to have all these leadership skills like yesterday. And you miss the most important part, which is what you just unpack through knowing who people are, seeking to understanding wiring, the way that people are designed, and then ultimately legacy, bigger picture mentality. What are these actions leading up to? And that's going to provide fuel for the fire to continue and be consistent long term. So, man, thanks for unpacking that for us. I found myself like, yes, this is good. All right, let's recap a little bit. Whoops. Okay. Four C's of advancement. Clarify key areas of growth. Our action step here would be to think about your core values and leverage surveys. So there's a ton of free survey tools that are out there, but ask your team, what are some of those areas that you want to grow in? I know that a lot of you already had thoughts around what some of those bigger areas of growth are with your team specifically.
Yeah. And then the second would be to curate content and resources. And so we showed you several different books, podcasts, conferences, and then also just what we're able to provide at Wild Spark, which is a bit of a blend of a lot of those different things. So you've got to figure out, once you understand where we want to grow, now the next question is, what are the tools we're going to use to get us there?
Yeah. And then once we have that clarity and we've found the content that's really going to resonate with people, we create community to help drive the content through. It's how it's best received. It's how people learn it the best. It's how people apply it the best, most importantly, through healthy accountability and having a support group around you that is going to help spur you on and propel you forward.
And finally, I would rather you start way smaller and have something that's sustainable than go all in with something that burns people out where they feel like they have a bunch of homework to do. And so all that to say, you got to find a way to be consistent with this, because that's what's going to lead to true growth.
Yeah. Don't hop off just yet, people. We've got a couple of updates for you that we're going to share here before we wrap up today, but I promise we'll end here in a second. We've already got the next webinar planned out. And so you can scan this QR code that's on the screen right here, and it's going to shoot you to the registration link. We'd love for people, if you want to pull out your phone, if you're on your computer, scan it, go ahead and register. It's going to be on 10 insane tips for leading remote teams. So I know that was a topic that even came up in our webinar today on, okay, what does this look like for a remote team? So we're going to focus specifically on that on the next webinar, which is at the end of September. And so we'd love to see everybody that's on this one hop in for that next one on leading a remote team.
Tips, they're not going to be good. They're not going to be great. They're going to be insane. So you don't want to miss that. And then finally, if anything that we talked about today seems compelling or you want to learn more, this is what we get to talk about every day at Wild Spark. And so we've created this experience, this online platform that will lead to consistency and community and give you the content that you need. And so If this feels overwhelming of all the tips that we gave you and you want something that's going to help you do this in a scalable way, then we would love to meet with you. So anyone who's here, we seriously appreciate you coming. If you want to meet with us, you can scan this. We're going to send this video out. And we're going to start doing this monthly. And now this is recorded, so we have to do it monthly. I can't go back on my word. So we will we'll see you guys next month.
Thanks, Hampton. Thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate it.